Hi BookTube. This is Sina, beating around the books. Today I want to make a video that is inspired by a video that Brian from Bookish made. So a couple of days ago, I don't know, 4 days ago, he made a video which was called My Top 11 Novels of the Year So Far and What They Say About Me as a Reader. And he used this sort of very interesting concept of, I guess, categorizing the novels that he liked best so far into different categories, and then sort of taking that to look at whether his idea of himself as a mainly character, what do you say, character driven? No, character reader, whatever, somebody who likes character mainly, whether that's actually true or not. And I think this was really fascinating. I think he really missed out on a possible really good tag, but yeah, well, I'm going to make my own version of it. Anyway, Mark Nash also made a response, or his own version of it, like on the same day. Of course, I kind of had to alter it a bit. So he suggested 4 different categories, which were different, character, ideas, and plot. I would kind of follow Mark Nash's idea also to not call it different, but call it unconventional, as opposed to experimental, because that's kind of a weird term and might not even work for everything, but unconventional in the form or the style, yeah, whatever you want to call it. And then I would also add a 5th category, which is just writing or language. That's just because to me sometimes that's like the one selling point of a book. And then, another reader might add something different, like, I don't know, setting. Some people love when the setting is, I don't know, really fantastical or very atmospheric. I'm not adding that, but theoretically you could do that if that's like one of your main attractions to a book. So for me, it'll be these 5 categories. And then the other change I've made is I'm not looking at the top 11 novels, because when I looked at my reading this year, whilst I had quite a good reading year, there weren't enough novels that really stood out to me, that felt, that they would actually make a difference or really be, how do you say this, would say enough. So instead I just went randomly, not randomly, but, with my top reads that are still in my memory from however long ago. Most of them are relatively recent, of the last maybe 2 or 3 years, but a few I've read as a, I don't know, 19-year-old or even younger than that. But, clearly they had some lasting effect, because I still consider them some of the best books that I've read. So this is in no particular order. I've just stacked them up however they fit. So let's just start with the first one. So the first one is Jennifer Egan's A Visit from the Goon Squad. This one, I would say, for me, is mainly about its unconventional form. Now, on the face of it, it doesn't look too unconventional. It's just, a novel in the form of short stories that are interconnected. But she does some stuff that is quite out there. I'm sure if you've heard of it, you will probably have heard of the chapter that is made up of PowerPoint presentations, which is very odd, and it works really well. So I think this one, for me, is mainly about unconventional. So I'm going to put it in there. I think if you wanted to, you could also probably call it, good on character, certainly for a specific one, but that wasn't really the main attraction for me. So that's that. It's also quite funny. But yeah, that's not the category. Okay, the next one is Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Yes, fair enough, it might not actually be a novel, but whatever, I'm going to count it anyway, because it was very, how do you say that? It left a lasting impression when I read it as a 13-year-old. And this one I would classify as mainly concerned with ideas, because it doesn't feel like, you know, this is not really about Gregor Samsa and his family. This is, you know, it's more about the what his fate symbolizes, right? The sort of dehumanization of work and being the sole sole provider for his whole family, and being only seen as, you know, having his own worth only be determined by his ability to provide. And as soon as that's taken away, he is a burden and he is isolated and alienated from everyone else. And yeah, I think, you know, it's much more about the ideas than about Gregor specifically. So, ideas. There we go. Then we have Hermann Hesse's Glasperlenspiel game. Absolutely, definitely also ideas. This is so cerebral. Yes, granted, we follow one specific character, his sort of life trajectory, but this is, yeah, firmly in the ideas category. If you haven't seen it, I did attempt to talk about this briefly and explain what it's about in like a video called, I think, 25 books in 2 minutes. It's somewhere at the end. I might try and link it, but yeah, I'm not going to attempt it again. It's quite abstract. Anyway, so ideas. Then we have Milkman by Anna Burns, which is probably one of the first books that I read that has stuck in my mind, that I read influenced by BookTube. I was not yet on BookTube myself, but I was a commenter and, you know, a consumer of it, a viewer. This one, I would say, is a mix. I feel like this needs several categories. So it's slightly unconventional in the writing, not too much, but slightly. It's very, very stream of consciousness, and there's, you know, very few breaks, as you can maybe see. It's like thick blocks of text. Well, and the characters are unnamed, but I think for me mainly it is about ideas and language. I really like the language, and I like the voice, which is probably part of language, yeah. And the ideas in terms of the way that this society is portrayed during the Troubles, and how living through this kind of situation of civil war, you know, leaves a lasting impression and basically, well, messes up a lot of stuff, not just on the individual basis, but also within society. And in the case of our protagonist, how do you say this? Yeah, you know, the way she acts is, you know, a response to what happens outside of her own mind. And, you know, she tries to flee into fiction, and yeah, and then the fact that nobody is named, they are all referred to as either something that stands out about them, some characteristic, or they are referred to in relation to other people. And, you know, this to me sort of, you know, how do you say it, symbolizes how your individuality is completely unimportant in this kind of situation. What is important is who you are, who you belong to, and where your, you know, where your connections are, and that can theoretically be, you know, turn out to be very dangerous for you. But you're not viewed as an individual in that sense. So yeah, where do we land on atmosphere? No, language, ideas, and I don't know what it was. Unconventional, but only slightly. Okay, the next one is the most current one I read of this bunch, is Hamnet by Maggie or Farrel. And this one too, I think, can't just be put in one category specifically. For me, this one was also language. I absolutely loved the writing. To me, it was really beautiful. It was very evocative, without being too flowery. And the other part that I absolutely loved here was characterization. So the character of Agnes is just so well fleshed out. Yeah, I just loved it. Well, and I loved the portrayal of grief, but I wouldn't know where to put that. Yeah, so for me, that's character and language. Then, sorry, only 2 more. That's the other thing I'm doing differently. I've just come up with 7. I couldn't think of any other ones that felt like they deserved it. Anyway, then we have B.S. Johnson's The Unfortunates, which I've also spoken about before. It's this book in a box, which has these loose chapters in here that you can mix up, apart from the first and the final chapter. So clearly this is very unconventional in form, because, you know, the order in which you read the chapters is completely random, if you so choose. So it definitely belongs in the unconventional category. Otherwise, I would also probably put it in the ideas category, because obviously, well, I mean, of course this can seem gimmicky, but I do think that it achieves something quite well. The way that, you know, the way how our memories and our minds don't usually work in a sort of chronological order, and sort of all sorts of random things that happen to you can trigger a memory out of the blue, and you know, and can seem quite incoherent. So I think that's really well sort of represented in this way. And the other thing, I will have to give credit to Mark Nash, because I did remember talking about it before, but I didn't recall it then, and he reminded me of it, that it also does this great thing, how do you say this? Showing the failure of language to express certain things, you know, in the face of grief and loss, which I would say belongs in the ideas category as well. Okay, and then lastly, sorry, we have this stupid thing, which is so awkward to hold, House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. This is certainly very unconventional. It's got all sorts of, I'm sure you've seen this, it's got all sorts of odd typography situations. Some text is struck out, and then you have Braille that you can't actually read because it's not raised. All sorts of odd bits, right? Plus we have like several different narrative layers. There's countless footnotes that span pages, footnotes upon footnotes as well. So you go sort of down these rabbit holes. So definitely unconventional. Otherwise, I think how one could also read it is for plot. Which I didn't realize until I figured out later that a lot of people have classified this as a horror book. And I didn't even think of that when I was reading it. But if, you know, a horror reader is satisfied with this kind of novel, I'm assuming they read it for the plot and enjoyed it. For me, is not what it was. So, it was mainly being unconventional, and I guess possibly ideas, although there are so many in it that it's kind of difficult to untangle them all. Yeah. You could also classify it as character if you wanted. Depends on how you read it. There's a lot in here. So, what does that say about me? because I never really thought about it. I knew that I liked good language, but, you know, that's kind of a very, how do you say that? It's difficult to pinpoint, isn't it? So I've looked at the sort of count, and I guess what I'm mostly drawn to is ideas, language, and unconventional narratives with the tiniest bit of character, which surprised me because character is one thing that I do, you know, enjoy and appreciate if a character is really well drawn. But it doesn't seem to be the main thing that will end up then staying in my mind. You know, it's not, apparently the novels that have stuck with me were not the ones where character was that important. So that was interesting to see, because I didn't really anticipate that. Anyway, I thought that was kind of an interesting exercise to do. So I'm not going to turn it into a tag, because I don't know, I'd feel awkward doing it, but I would love to see other people take this up in whatever shape or form you would like. You know, if you've read more than me this year and there were so many outstanding ones, do what Brian did, do just the ones from this year that you liked, or, you know, do what I did. And yeah, I think it's a really interesting idea to sort of look at your reading tastes in this way. So yeah, let me know what you think of this. And if you're planning to either make a video or maybe just answer in the comments how you feel about it, maybe that would be great. So until then, I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.